So, hello and welcome to the Great Legal Minds on LawWiser. Today, we have with us a personality who needs no introduction. Yes, I'm talking about Mr. Sarosh Zaiwalla, who runs Zaiwalla Co in London, one of the first South Asians to have started a firm in UK. And sir, very warm welcome to you on this show.
It's my pleasure and honor to be on your show.
Thank you so much. So, in fact, I think we've spoken several times in the past, and there's a lot that I've read about you, and a lot of people that I speak to, say great things about you. So,
I'm sure the great things are exaggerated.
No, not at all. And I think it will be a very interesting conversation today that we're going to have. So, I'll start right from how you began in London in 70s, set up your own firm over there, and worked with many interesting personalities, including Dalai Lama, Rajiv Gandhi, Amitabh Bachchan, Tony Blair, Sonia Gandhi. I think it's endless. I cannot take enough names over here. One thing I can definitely say is that you've had an interesting career and life. So let's start with your London story.
That is correct. I had a very interesting career and life, but I put that to the grace of God.
So let me just start with your London story. Why London? Was that for a better life? Because in India too, you were very well connected, and I think everything was fine. So why did you choose London?
The reason why I came to London, because I don't know whether many people know, but my father was probably one of the first Indians to qualify as a solicitor in London. He qualified in 1925. And in those days, there used to be Indians who used to qualify as a barrister, but not as a solicitor. And he was the youngest member in his family. And he came back in 1926 after working 1 year in a solicitor's firm in London and started Zaiwalla Company in Bombay in 1926 or 27. And because he was the youngest member in the family and I was the youngest member in a family of 6, I decided I will qualify as a solicitor in London to keep the tradition started by my father.
I see. And so you could have actually practiced over there in law firm. You could have come back to India. Why did you choose to have a firm over there with Indian name?
Well, my original intention was to come to India back, practice as a solicitor, and join politics.
Really?
And I was very much a political animal in my younger days in India, because I started the first student union in Bombay, in the Government Law College and the HR College of Commerce. But then, I'm going to be honest, I decided to marry a Hindu girl.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, for a Parsi to marry a Hindu girl was completely forbidden. So I decided to spend some time in London. And I married her before I qualified. So I had to, as I was going through the training. And so I decided to stay back in London for some time. And then I said, why not start a firm in London? And that's what I did. And I found that in those days, there were many Asian or Indian firms, but they were not in the main city of London. But they were in the suburbs doing immigration and crime, and they had no standing. And I always believed that an Indian can do as much as anybody else. So I decided to start. And the most important decision I took was to start with my Indian name and not an anglicized name, because the few Indian firms which are there outside London in the suburbs all had anglicized name or had an English name in the front. So that was the thing which really and ultimately was the point of success for me.
That was a distinguisher as well for you over there, I think. So tell me something, how difficult or easy it was for you to start a firm over there and right in the in main commercial district in London?
Well, I was very young and I was very enthusiastic, and I've always wanted to achieve things and change things. And therefore, it was, I did not have money with me, but it was a time when it was possible to go to the bank. And I remembered I was passing through NatWest Bank office in Tottenham Court Road, and I decided to, when I was training as a solicitor, and I went to the manager, and I remember I forgot his name now, and I told him I want to start a law firm and I want an overdraft of £10,000. He looked at me, he gave me a cup of tea. He was very impressed as I came and asked him, and he said, "Come back when you qualify." So when I qualified, I got an overdraft of £10,000. In those days, the bank manager had a right and discretion to give an overdraft to a customer. Now it's not possible. The things have changed. So I started my office in a one room, and I was very lucky. I met Mr. Hinduja, Sricharan Gopichan Hinduja, at an event, a big Indian event, and we started talking, and they invited me to their office to meet them again, and they said, join us. And I said, no, I can't join you, I'm going to qualify. But I kept relations with them. And my first office was Hinduja's first office at 29 Museum Street.
Oh.
And that was also a lucky break, because I got a retainer of £6,000 a year, which is £500 a month. And those days they had a very small office, so it was not as big as they are now.
I also heard that, at that time, it was difficult to afford a secretary or somebody. So I heard that, your girlfriend was actually typing for you.
That's right. I had an ex-German girlfriend at the International Students' House, and she used to come part-time to do typing for me. But that's how you start, and that's the fun of starting. You start from a scratch. And I enjoyed, when I look back, I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I wouldn't miss that for anything.
Yeah.
And I used to remember go and post the letters myself, and when the new letters used to come, I used to look forward to it. But that's the way one has to start.
Okay, so let's start with the first personality that you worked with. So let me just ask you a question. How was it like having Tony Blair in your office, and how did you keep the relationship alive, and what all you guys did together?
I will tell you how I started. And I started with the name Zaiwalla Company. And to my great surprise, I got a call from the Indian High Commission, because my office is very close to Indian High Commission, saying that the High Commissioner would like to invite you for a cup of tea. I started a law firm, it's an Indian firm. So I went and met the High Commissioner, who was Dr. Said Muhammad, a wonderful, brilliant man. He was himself a barrister. He was the former Advocate General of Kerala. And if I remember correctly, he was the Minister of State for Law during Indira Gandhi's emergency days.
I see.
So he was the High Commissioner, and he was thrilled that I had started. And he said, why don't you do the Indian government work? So one of my first clients after the Hindujas, were the High Commission of India. And this was in 82. And at that time, India was going through PL 480 scheme. India was going through a famine. And President Johnson had decided to give free wheat to India. But India had to charter ships. So India used to charter 200 to 300 ships a year. And all of them had London arbitration. So there were all these claims, small claims, demurrage, damaged cargo, and all the things. So it was great fun doing those claims. So that's how I got into it. And I met Tony Blair because one of my very early clients was Global Shipping Company of Dubai. And this was about Jumeirah Beach Hotel, construction of a Jumeirah Beach Hotel, which is now, of course, quite developed. And there was a big shipping dispute. And the Global Shipping appointed me as a solicitor, a Parsi chap called Mike Minwala. Mm-hmm. And the arbitration was shifted to New Orleans. And on my visit for the hearing, in the British Airways first class, the other side's team was there. And guess who were there? Tony Blair, Derry Irwin. And first time I met Tony Blair was on a flight to New Orleans. And we spent 2 weeks together as opponent solicitor. And whilst he was there, he was very keen to do shipping work because he was in the labor chambers of Derry Irwin. And shipping is sort of very privileged work, even for a young barrister to do. So then I had a case called the La Pintada, which was a case where compound interest could be paid for late payment of debt. And the Indian government was very concerned because we always paid our freight and demurrage late, 1 year, 2 years, and the compound interest liability would be very high. And it was estimated that if the arbitrator had made an award which said that if you pay late, then you have to pay compound interest, and there was about $5 to $6 million liability. And everybody said there's no chance at all because of the judgment of Lord Denning, which said if a debtor pays late, then he must pay compound interest. And Tony Blair was looking for shipping work, so he asked me if he could work with me. So I took him on, and he was the barrister with Derry Irwin. And the reason why I had to sack him, and this is also a public fact,
really?
Because he agreed that my position, but the submission which I had made to the judge in my witness statement, my affidavit were correct. But in the morning of the hearing, he phoned me up at 9:15 saying that the Queen's Counsel and he would like to see with a representative of the High Commission, Mrs. Charawala. And outside the court, they said there's absolutely no hope of succeeding. And we are not going to appear if you insist that you make this argument which you are suggesting. And I said, no, you have to appear. And they appeared before Mr. Justice Stoughton. And Martin Morbick, who is now heading an inquiry into the Cledding issue, former Court of Appeal judge, he was the other side's barrister. And Mr. Justice Stoughton was so well prepared and interested in our case, and we won. So then I had to sack him for the arbitration hearing. That's the story behind. I had to remove him. But I must say, to the credit of both Tony Blair and his senior derriere, when we won in the House of Lords, he wrote me a letter of apology and said that they were obviously wrong. And they respect you if you are correct. They don't take it personally. So that's how I got to know Tony Blair. And Tony Blair is still a friend, and we have remained friends till then.
You've handled a variety of matters, including winning the first ever case in the House of Lords for India, intervening on behalf of Sonia Gandhi to stop an Italian producer from making a movie on her life.
Well, the first success for us, public success for us, was the La Pintada. When we won that case in the House of Lords 5-0, it was reported in the newspapers. And therefore, we started getting a lot of other cases, shipping cases. A lot of Greek ship owners became our client. Sonia Gandhi contacted me much later, after Rajiv Gandhi passed away. And I got to know Rajiv Gandhi well because we were the High Commission solicitors. And after the 9th Asian Games, Rajiv Gandhi was the chairman of the organizing committee of the 9th Asian Games. And for the 9th Asian Games, they had signed a contract with a company called Metco in Dubai. It was an Indian company of $5 million. And that contract was allegedly breached by India. So they started proceedings in England. And we won that case on jurisdiction. So Mr. Gandhi was extremely happy because he was in charge of that. He was not a prime minister or politician then. And he wrote me a very nice letter. Mr. Shankar, the wife of Meera Shankar, was one of the government officers, was instructing me. And that's how our friendship started with Rajiv Gandhi. He was very, very pleased with the success.
Tell me something. I mean, we have recently, seen an unusual event, which is not COVID, but, this huge ship, getting stuck in Suez Canal, and which actually resulted in losses of billions of dollars in trade. Now, how do insurance claims and those kind of things in that kind of matter pan out in that kind of situation?
Well, this was in fact asked to me by the Wall Street Journal and the Dow Jones in a press interview recently, which has been published. The claims would depend on who was at fault. Was it master? Was it the pilot? Or something else? Or it should be just bad weather? Because the maritime law, if it is an act of God, then it is exemption. So this has to be decided by an arbitration tribunal, because it may be that the pilot, who ought to have known what is the draft of the Suez Canal for a vessel. Draft is the distance between the bow of the ship and the ground in the water, because the vessel touched the ground. So I think this will have to be decided. It could be the first allegation would be against the master, that he was negligent in navigation, in which case the ship owner is liable. It could also be the Suez Canal authorities were liable if they had provided wrong information to the master of the draft. Because then what happens when the ship arrives, the two officers, what are called pilots, tugboats, navigate the ship through the canal, and they might be at error. It's very difficult to predict who was at error.
Known only after proper investigations into it.
Yeah, after proper investigation.
Okay. Now, let me ask you another question, which is, I think, one of the biggest matters that I heard very recently, which was, you're representing Bank of Venezuela in the matter seeking the right to sell gold for humanitarian grounds. Where does that matter stand today? And if you can very quickly tell us about the learnings.
It's a very, very interesting case, and it is a larger interest as to what extent a country can interfere in the internal affairs of a country. Now, Venezuela is a democratic country, and what has happened is the Venezuela government deposited gold with Bank of England safe deposit vault worth about 1.9 billion euros 4 years ago. And last year, it went to collect the gold back because it needed money because of the sanctions and to buy food for the Venezuelan people. The governor of the Bank of England says, sorry, I'm not going to give your gold back because the bank does not recognize the authority of President Maduro. Because what has happened is that the US and UK and certain European countries decided to recognize one Mr. Guaido, who is never elected president, as the president, as an ad hoc president.
Yeah, just sorry to stop you here. I just wanted to actually have a very quick view on, because of the change in regime in the US, do you think this is going to change?
Well, one hopes so. I think it will change. But what has happened is so far, in the High Court, we did not succeed before Mr. Justice Steers. In the Court of Appeals, before the 3 judges, we succeeded. And the other side has now appealed to the Supreme Court, and they have got leave to appeal. And the Supreme Court appeal hearing is going to be held in the middle of July of this year. So let us see what the Supreme Court decides.
I see. Now, my next question is about Zaiwalla Co per se. So Zaiwalla Co solicitors benefit from the expertise of a strong international team, including specialists in the laws of Russia and CIS, China, India, Middle East, Iran. So what is the secret behind managing such a diverse team so well, and you are managing matters which are so diverse?
A good question. And this is what has been asked to me by many people. And the answer is that the firm is known for innovative approach to law. And I'll give you 3 examples. The first was when Russia had the award of 50 billion euros in the Yukos case. And they came to me and they said, everybody has said, they went to all these big magic circle firms, and can you show us a way out? And I gave them a way out, and that they succeeded because of our success in the Indian case called PCB Limited versus Asia Golden Rice. And that's how we succeed. Now, when we succeeded for Iran against the UK government on the nuclear proliferation case in the Supreme Court. They had gone to a very large firm, Stephenson Harvard. They lost in the High Court of Appeal. And the Stephenson Harvard said no chance in the Supreme Court, and they came to us. And we succeeded in the Supreme Court, but we took completely novel new points. See, what happens is the most large firms and most lawyers go by authorities, and they say, this is how it is a law, this is how it is. And I believe that law is for justice and not justice for law. So with honesty, you interpret the law in such a way to make the judge see that it would be unfair to apply the law which is believed to be the law. So that's how we succeeded in the Iran case, which is a case of damages of 4.6 billion against dollars against the UK government. And we settled it in 2019. And the British government had paid a large amount in compensation to Bank Mellat of Iran. Similarly, when the Venezuelan central bank, they first went to another law firm, big law firm. They had the case for nearly a year, did nothing. Or you can't sue Bank of England. I said, no, we will take the Bank of England on because it's a question of justice. And we took it on. Everybody was surprised. And we lost very badly in the High Court. But in the Court of Appeal, we have won. And that has made a significant difference to my client's position. So the important thing is that people should realize that law is for justice and not justice for law.
That's a great point, actually. So let me just ask you a question that, with such kind of expertise and you are sitting right there in, London, how does Indian government really get benefited from your expertise? Are you working a lot with Indian government, Indian authorities, Indian organizations?
Well, before I answer that, just to continue with your answer to your first question, today there are 126 reported judgments in the English law report where my firm has acted for one of the parties. And the case is only reported when there's a significant change of law. It's an important case. Now, talking of Indian government, we acted for Indian government for many, many, many years. And it is fair to say that because of our effort, nearly $50 million of saving, which Indian government had at a time when India was short of foreign exchange. This was in the 80s and the early 90s. Things changed after the early 90s. Right. At the moment, we are not acting for Indian government. For us, no particular reason.
Okay, I see.
But we'll be very happy to act for Indian government.
Yeah, let me ask you an obvious question. So, what are your plans for India? Will we see a full-fledged practice for Zaiwalla and Co in India anytime soon?
Uh, not really, because I got my father's office in Bombay, which is of course quite independent. My brother
Yes.
runs, but there is no need to open offices. The ruler of Dubai had given me permission to start an office in Dubai in the 90s, but I said it was not practical because it costs a lot of money to run an office, and we are a boutique firm, and we like to sort of have our hands on the gear and do a good job. And if you sort of become big, then the reputation which you have achieved might not be easy to keep.
Absolutely, and I think you've chronicled a lot of your experiences in your memoir, Honor Bound. So tell us a little about that, and why did you actually name it Honor Bound?
Well, I everybody was asking me in London and India that you must write your story because we are the first, and even today, the only non-white law firm started in the 1 square mile business district of City of London. It's a very sort of eminent area to practice in, eminent venue to practice in. And I'd ignored it. And I was at a meeting with Nari Hira of Magna Publication in India. He is my client, and I've known him. And he said, "You must write your book. I've been telling you." I said, "No, I don't know. And who is going to publish it?" So he said, "I'm going to arrange the publisher." So he managed to get a publisher, HarperCollins, for me, and he arranged it. And the credit goes to him, that he encouraged me to write a book. And I've written my book not as a vanity book to show off, but as an inspiration for the young Indians and the young non-white solicitors and how to sort of start and make progress in the West. And that was my objective and the main intentions to write the book.
So, okay, my next question is actually somewhat related. I mean, you've accomplished so much. You've actually chronicled them in your book. Can you tell us, little two, three things that 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 you would want to share with the younger generation? And then I would be asking questions about, what is left in your bucket list to be done.
Well, I think what the message I would give to the younger generation, those who are going to practice law, for the whole younger generation, the most important is integrity and honesty. And as a Parsi, to me, I was driven into my mind that integrity and keeping your word is the most important. And therefore, the reputation which the firm has gained, because the courts recognize that we will never be dishonest with the court, and we will not be dishonest even with the other side. Is often tempted to omit facts, but I would not do that. And I think in reality, when you have a pure, kind and radiant heart and you do it with absolute honesty, there is also a divine assistance to make you succeed. And I do believe in that now.
And so, what is left in your bucket list to be done now?
Well, I have never had anything in my pocket. It just comes and goes.
Okay.
So that is true. I've never really sort of said I'm going to do this. And I think about advice I would give to everybody, not just the young lawyers, is to do your honest best and maintain honesty and integrity. The growth might be slow, but it will be a sure growth and you will be able to retain it. Today, we are respected in the West. We are respected world over for our integrity, more than integrity, commitment, and reliability.
So, Mr. Zaiwalla, do you still play cricket? I know you love cricket.
So I love cricket. No, I am now too old to play cricket. So I don't, but I do watch cricket.
What do you do?
I watched the last India-England series with interest.
I see. So, what are the things that you do in your spare time? I know that you hardly would have a spare time, but what would you do if you have?
Well, I'm so lucky. I have a house on the seaside in Kingston Goals. It's West Sussex. There are 2 horses there. There's a field there, so I go down there. I have a house in south of France, so I go down there. And I love countryside and I love nature. And I go for long walks. I have local friends who are very good.
So did you go to any of those places during the lockdown to spend your time?
No, I haven't gone to my Villefranche home. in the south of France, but I go practically every week to my Sussex home. And in fact, I had moved from my London house to my Sussex house for the lockdown.
My last question: how did really this lockdown, or this whole COVID pandemic, affected the business?
Well, it has affected all of us quite a lot, in the sense that not necessarily financially or business-wise, but I think emotionally also. Because for example, I've always been so active and moving around. And during the lockdown period, when I had to work from home on the Zoom, and of course, when I got used to it, but it is not as good a fun as when you are working in the normal way. We don't appear in courts anymore, very rarely. It's all on Zoom, which is completely different. I was concerned the first 3 months, but I think with the grace of God, because of our reputation, we have not been short of work. In fact, the firm has done better than ever during the lockdown.
That's so good to hear. And, I would like to wish you all the best of health and everything. And thank you so much once again for giving us time to be on this show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and I must compliment you for organizing these shows, because it allows Indian message to be spread worldwide. And that, to me, that is most important, that what matters is the color of the heart and not the color of sex, religion, or flag.
Absolutely. Thank you so much with this message. I would like to say thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. And thank you for inviting me. God bless.
Thank you.